All right, this is Moonshine Russell, true grit and tough as shit, and always in a bad mood. So welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Jeff.
How you do?
My name's Jeff. I'm the host of Talkumentary. This is a little bit different of an intro today because I have a little bit of a confession to make. It would have been real easy for me to come in here and introduce this episode with, which we kind of did it anyway, but I'm going to address a little bit of something that opened my mind throughout this documentary. We could have come in here, done a lot of hooting and hollering and pig squeals and brainless laughing and doing my best, Cletus the slack-jawed yokel impressions. And, although I do still kind of want to do those because I think they're fucking awesome. When I chose this documentary to watch, being that this is kind of our 4th of July celebration episode, that was kind of the idea. I thought, wouldn't it be funny to celebrate, watching a documentary about a bunch of kind of witless hillbillies and yeet our way through, an episode, But I didn't set out with the purposeful intention of kind of, I guess, marginalizing or being inconsiderate to an entire region of people. But that's what I was considering doing when I decided to do this documentary. It wasn't until I actually watched the documentary Hillbilly, which is what we're covering today, that I kind of, halfway through it, I'm going, uh-oh, I may have made a mistake here. And I realized I was maybe exploiting a stereotype just the same way that was kind of portrayed as being harmful in the documentary that we watched. But I guess that's one of the beautiful things about documentaries is that they can show you things, they can make you see things in a way that maybe you didn't before. I do end each of our episodes, keep your minds open and be kind to each other. Well, I tried my best to maintain that. So with an open mind, I'd rather than scrap the whole episode and say, we're not doing this one. I figured it was better to just speak my mind about and be honest about that, admit some naivety and sort of reframe my plan for this episode. So instead of going all boomhauer on everybody and real tongue in cheek, not that we can't do that, just know that it comes from a place of respect, and being that I do feel like this is the perfect documentary to do for the 4th of July, because it is a beautiful representation of kind of a highly misunderstood culture, and maybe serve as a catalyst for a celebration of Appalachian people and their role in American culture. So with that being said, welcome to another episode of Talkumentary. I am Jeff. I am your host. Today in the den, I am joined by two of our illustrious crew members, Bruce, and the juice is loose. Brice, what's up, buddy?
Not much.
Maddie, Batty, Boom Baladdy.
Hey.
What's going on?
Hello, sir.
Hello, Matt. Do you guys smell that?
What's that smell?
What is that smell? Holy shit, I know that smell. Guys, it is such a good night. It is a good night for a bad mood. That, my friends, is the spicy and earthy aroma of moonshine. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one half of the PWP Pro Wrestling Phoenix Tag Team Champions, Mr. Moonshine Russell. What's up, Darren?
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You've humbled my soul.
If you ever need a manager or a ring announcer, you let me know.
All right, put your name on the list.
You got a long list waiting for you.
Everybody wants a shot, I think.
Everyone thinks they can do that shit until they get there,
Right,
right?
that's a little bit different. Especially you got someone coming at you in your face.
Yeah.
Which happens
Yeah.
sometimes too.
Yeah, for sure. So Moonshine, he's if it's not obvious, he's a professional wrestler. Where do you wrestle?
I wrestle mainly kind of in Omaha. We do a monthly show at the Waiting Room Lounge, usually during the week. Sometimes they'll give us a weekend. Otherwise, I can be found. I do shows down in South Sioux City, Nebraska. We do shows at El Ranchito Ballroom for Next Level Wrestling. Sometimes you can find me in Lincoln for MWA. There's also Magnum Pro in the Omaha area. Sometimes they'll pull me out. Just kind of depends.
Yeah. Cool. So obviously you're doing pretty good right now. You're holding a championship, and who's your tag partner?
And PWP is Jack Darling. He's a kind of a bayou boy.
Yeah.
Kind of a couple teeth missing. He's kind of a little country, if you would.
Yeah.
As well as I am. So
makes for a good team, right?
yeah. Well, the worst part is I'm in South Sioux City. I'm also on a tag team with Duke Cornell. We're Guns and Beer, and we were tag team champions till last month. We lost them, but we'd probably get them back.
Yeah, you got this. Yeah. Duke Cornell, he wrestles PWP too. Yeah?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, enough about that. Well, maybe not. Tell us a little bit. So you're here. We're covering Hillbilly. You kind of adopted that persona when you and I talked. The Moonshine persona. You told me, the best wrestling persona, and I'm sorry if I'm ruining kayfabe here for anyone that may be listening, but the best wrestling persona is one that is an amplification of your own personality. Right. So why if people can't see here, when I met Darren, he was calling himself Darren Thunder Russell, which was you were one of my nephew's favorites. So right. You and Matty Starr were pretty much head to head on that one. But you adopted Moonshine. Why? Tell me a little bit about that.
Like you said, when I started off, I was Darren Thunder Russell. Actually, when I first started off, I was just Darren. Just straight Darren. I was the camera guy.
Hi guys, I'm Darren.
Yeah. I got in an altercation with one of the wrestlers, and I was just Darren the camera guy. And then slowly, as I kind of evolved, I was going for the good guy look, the baby face, if you would. Mm-hmm. And Darren Thunder Russell was just baby face me. I said, but I felt like I had to act like a baby face. You got to do all the right things, and you really can't show a lot of charisma or who you are through Darren Thunder Russell. Right. And I kind of went on a hiatus there for a little bit, and they wanted to bring me back, and that was when Duke just came back to PWP, and he had a faction called Guns and Beer, and he needed a partner, and they said, well, why don't we just throw Darren with him?
Yeah.
He's like, he's a country guy anyway, you know? And they're like, we'll just have to country him up a little bit. And I think it was Duke that came up with the Moonshine persona.
It's fucking awesome, dude.
And I was like, that works pretty good. And then when I started off, I was Darren Moonshine Russell. Eventually just dropped the Darren. I was like, too long. Yeah. Moonshine Russell's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Moonshine it is then for the rest of this podcast, if that's all right with you, sir.
We'll take it. That's fine. Right.
Yeah. How long you been doing this? How long you been wrestling?
Let's see here. I graduated in 2005, and I think the summer of 2005, I went to Clarinda, Iowa to a training session and tried it out there. And I didn't think it was for me at first. And somehow, some way or another, I got an email from Chris Havius, owner and runner of PWP. And he messaged me and he said, well, we're doing a show in Council Bluffs. It'd be closer. I believe Hype Gotti and Jaden Drago were going to be the teachers of the seminar. And Jaden Drago was taught by Shawn Michaels. He went through a whole stint down there. And I was like, well, that would be pretty cool too. I was like, we'll give this a shot. And so I drove down one day and set up the ring and everything. And I went through the camp, and I said, we were throwing clotheslines, we were doing suplexes, we were hitting the ropes, we were actually in the ring. And I was like, okay, this is more my speed.
This is fucking awesome.
And then I think I trained for maybe a year and a half, 2 years before I got my first match in 2008. And ever since then, it's kind of just
been doing it.
Once you do it, they always say it's like, once you do it, it's hard to get away from it. Like you always want to have that in your life, something to do with wrestling.
Yeah. And you probably have, the promoters, whether it's Havius or whoever's doing it for the other companies, knocking at your door going, I need someone to fill a match. It's hard to tell your buddy no to.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't help.
Yeah.
He pulled me back a couple times. So.
Yeah. And you and Matt know each other before tonight.
We do.
Matt, how do you know Mr. Moonshine?
We used to go to school together for a whole year. I sat behind him in class.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's all right. I drew smiley faces on him, and he didn't know, so that was kind of my entertainment throughout school.
And my mom's still mad about it.
I believe that. I'm sorry, Mrs. Kunzel.
Mrs. Moonshine, actually.
Oh, Mrs. Moonshine. Mrs. Moonshine Russell.
That's funny. All right, so the four of us, and then DJ over there behind the camera, we descended from the hills, whether that's Council Bluffs or one of the hills in small town Nebraska or something like that, or maybe over in Appalachia. We descended from the hills. Some of us have brought our favorite distilled beverages. We're going to be flapping our jaws to talk about an to me, an eye-opening 87-minute documentary released in 2018 called Hillbilly.
Hillbillies are really nice, but some people think that we're horrible people.
The term hillbilly has plagued the Appalachian region, and more recently, Appalachia was singled out as the reason for Trump's rise.
People have a certain perception of us.
A woman once asked me if I knew who Johnny Carson was. She didn't think we had TVs.
No other region in America is more misunderstood than Appalachia.
This commitment to characterize the region as poor means that coal companies can come in and exploit the entire region.
It's only a region of trash, so why not trash it?
People have been victimized because there's no public outcry.
They don't care about people like us.
I mean, stereotypes do vicious cultural work.
Hillary said that we were all deplorables.
A lot of young people want to escape as soon as possible.
It's tiring to have to hide who you are as a person.
It's Thursday, and I'm glad that I can be black and forget that I'm a hillbilly.
Everybody has an Appalachia, somebody that they can feel superior to.
The hills stand for so much.
Those attempting to portray the region must understand the complexities of poverty and pride and culture.
Oppressed and exploited people can turn against people with whom we should stand in solidarity.
I probably would identify as a hillbilly.
I'm a hillbilly and I'm very proud.
Hillbilly is a documentary that examines the iconic hillbilly image in media and culture and explores more than 100 years of media representation of mountain and rural people and offers an urgent exploration of how we see and think about rural America, specifically in the Appalachian region. This documentary won some awards, Best Documentary Feature and Best Score in a Documentary Feature at the Scruffy City Film and Music Festival, which sounds like maybe a hillbilly festival. Scruffy City, I don't know what that is, but I like it. They won a special mention for documentary filmmaking at the Traverse City Film Festival. Won documentary award for Best Documentary Feature at the Los Angeles Film Festival. And it has a 90% tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. But this is one of, I think, the first two documentaries that we've done that is not certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes due to its 55% audience score. So a little bit hit and miss on this one. And I think maybe we got, maybe we'll see some of that when we do our ratings later on in the show. Let's see. Co-directed by Ashley York and Sally Rubin. Produced by Doug Blush, Silas House, David Sutherland, Jonathan Matthews, Brian Donnell, Sam Cole, Kayla Veloso, and Tom Hansel. This film was The Orchard, Sally Rubin Films, and Stay Wild production. We streamed it on Tubi, and we'll have a link with all that shit in the show notes. Let's get into it. A quick warning before we get into it. If you want to see the documentary before we talk about it, now is your one and only spoiler alert. But you don't need to. You can just listen to us and we'll tell you all about it. Isn't that right, gentlemen?
Yep. All about it.
Everything you need to know.
Yep. And more. Probably more than you ever wanted to know about this doc. At the top of the show, I spoke a little bit about why I chose this documentary, so I don't think we need to go into that. Had any of you guys seen this before I put it on your plate?
Just in real life.
Just in real life, yeah.
Just in real life.
I didn't know they were filming it.
Same story.
Kind of where I met Darren. That's Hillbilly Land too. Just Nebraska Hillbilly Land.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys did grow up in rural America, small town America. What was the size, Darren? What was the size of the Moonshine? I'm sorry.
It's all good.
What was the size of the town? That
Town's about 300 people, maybe less than 300 people now. Yeah. But I think last was 300 last I knew.
Yeah.
It's been that way for a decade or more.
Even in our high school, I graduated in a class of 10 kids.
Yeah.
5 boys, 5 girls. 3 of them were first cousins.
Yeah.
That tells you anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So, how about you, Brice? Had you heard of this one before?
Had I heard of Hillbilly?
The documentary.
Yeah. No, I had not.
Had you have you ever met a hillbilly?
Yeah.
Today?
Well, not today.
Oh, okay.
Maybe today.
Yeah.
Maybe every day.
You're so cultured.
Yeah, that's you want cultured swine. You don't have to go far. That's
yeah. Darren, I contacted you. I said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I told you what we were watching. Did you have predictions about the show? What before you watched it? Like, what were you thinking? Like, what the fuck, Jeff? Like,
I was kind of hoping it was gonna be more along the lines, like you said, like just kind of seeing hillbillies doing hillbilly things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when I kind of watched the trailer for it, I was like, oh, I'm like, there's some political, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, kind of a mix of everything. Not so much making fun of hillbillies. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I was surprised in that too.
Right.
So was I. Yeah, my prediction was along the same lines. You know, it was going to be an episode of, you know, Beverly Hillbillies, or maybe not that show, but, you know, what was the one, Buck Wild or something, where it's just people going crazy and nuts and
going Buck Wild.
Yeah, going Buck Wild. And I should have known better. I mean, you're going to have a documentary about that. That's more of a like a TV, you know, a scripted TV show as opposed to a documentary. But it was a little surprising to me that it was not that, even though there was a lot of that in there. You know, the very first scene is a hillbilly parade, which was interesting to me because with the hillbilly stereotype being so, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're talking down on the stereotype, talking about how harmful it is and all that. And then they're still very much embracing that during their parades and things. And I get that. I think that's probably pretty common with a lot of things. But throughout the film, they do talk about, you know, the people of Appalachia start to believe these stereotypes as well, which that's kind of case in point right there that, you know. So anyway, I was surprised a little, sort of the stereotyping of a misunderstood people in a region. So anyway, anything else you guys want to add there? No.
That parade looked like fun.
Yeah,
it did. Yeah, it did. Let's get into some of our favorite or least favorite things about Hillbilly. But I'm going to give a quick synopsis of the documentary. Allow me to do some code switching, which was a word they used about changing your accent while I read this. So let me see if I can get it. Does that sound Kentucky?
That's mighty fine.
Darren, how am I doing?
Down right there, down real good.
All right. Ooh, that's good. I like that. Real good. I should have you read this. Hillbilly introduces audience to a nuanced, authentic Appalachia that is quite conscious of how it has been portrayed and the impacts of those portrayals. The documentary deconstructs mainstream representations while asking crucial questions such as, where did the hillbilly archetype come from? Why has it endured on screen for more than 100 years? How do Appalachian and rural people view themselves as a result of these negative portrayals? And what is the impact on the rest of America? Hillbilly goes on a personal and political journey into the heart of Appalachian coal fields. Is it a coal field? Coal mine. Heart of the coal mine. Exploring the role of media representation in the creation of the iconic American hillbilly and examining the social, cultural, and political underpinnings of the infamous stereotype. I don't know a hillbilly that would have said underpinnings, but I just said it. I'm probably doing exactly what I said I didn't want to do, but we're having fun. This was filmed in Georgia, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. Hillbilly uncovers an unexpected set of artists, poets, activists, queer musicians, Appalachian poets, and intersectional feminists, all unexpected voices emerging from this historically misunderstood region. Hillbilly is a timely and urgent exploration of how we see and think about poverty and rural identity in contemporary America, offering a call for dialogue during this diverse time in U.S. history. So that was it. First impressions, you guys, we'll talk about standout moments, but without going too deep into your things, Brice, did you enjoy this documentary?
I enjoyed aspects of this documentary. Yeah. I think the cinematography was really good. They had some really cool shots in it.
they also got a lot of like old videos from movies and everything spliced in, old Mountain Dew advertisements, stuff like that, it'll tickle your innards. That's why we drink it. It's good.
Yeah, it tickles my innards all right.
Mm-hmm.
Moonshine, what stood out to you about this documentary, man? This was 80-something minutes of, documentary. Are you, first of all, I guess, are you a documentary watcher? Is this something that...
Here and there.
Yeah.
I do a lot of wrestling documentaries just because, I'm kind of in that. Every once in a while I'll stumble on something else, but I enjoyed watching this for what it was. But
yeah.
Like he said, like aspects of it, there were parts of it that really stuck out to me, and some of it was just kind of like,
What stood out? What stood out as something that you liked?
I kind of liked how it seemed like a lot of the hillbilly types were like real proud. I said they're proud people to be hillbillies and accept the fact that they're hillbillies. I said I don't think that they like that there's this negative connotation to how they live or how they were brought up or where they live, and it's like that's kind of cool because I can kind of relate to it. But
yeah, something along those same lines, something that kind of stood out to me was I realized that I didn't even really know what Appalachia was. Like I knew, the Appalachian Mountains, but like where do those run through? What is considered to be that? And, they even mentioned in there, like, where Iowa is because there's a big sign that says you're in Iowa, but Appalachia goes through a whole bunch, let's see, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Maryland, Mississippi, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. First of all, some of the most beautiful country I've ever seen. I've ridden my motorcycle through almost all of those states or parts of them, and it's absolutely gorgeous up there. You also see a lot of rebel flags, which is a little bit unnerving. But they almost, and back to what you were saying, they almost talk about it a little bit like it's like it's a race. Or like it's it's so much a part of their identity. We are Midwesterners, right? But I don't tell anybody that's not how I identify myself. I don't say, well, I'm a Midwesterner from whatever. Like that's not like I might tell you I'm from Nebraska, but I don't really identify. But they were, people calling themselves Appalachian Americans, where that is who you are. So there's a huge amount of pride in that. And them saying like, yeah, I'd call myself a hillbilly, even though I don't know if we would go as far as to call it a slur, but maybe it's on the path to that. I probably at some point we'll listen to this document or this podcast 20 years down the road and we'll be canceled because we all we were saying the word hillbilly so often, but
hillbilly.
That was too bold.
Brice is canceled.
Sealed my fate.
Oh God, Brice Necker, everyone.
Just got canceled.
It was worth it.
But yeah, I agree. The amount of pride in that was a little bit shocking, but I mean, understandable too. I think. We all kind of, I think, take pride in to an extent where we come from, and especially if it becomes at all oppressed in any sort of way. I know even like when I would, and maybe this is going too far into things, but like when I was in the Navy, I never really cared that I'm from Nebraska. It was never really a thing. But when I got to the Navy and no one else was from Nebraska, all of a sudden I'm proud of being a Nebraskan. And I'm like, yep, that's me. That's where and then I come back to Nebraska and I couldn't care less anymore because this is where we are. But, I can kind of see maybe where they're coming from with that. Matt, how about you, man? Talk about some standouts.
The culture there is fun.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of a derogatory thing to say about them. Not that I would, but
right.
The culture is fun. I relate to it. That's what I grew up in. And the documentary itself, it was well put together. The filmography was good. And yeah, that's kind of stuff that I want to do someday is fly my drone over cool mountainous regions and just clearly they took some of this filming in the fall because just it was so beautiful up there.
Yep. So one thing that I thought was a sort of an interesting kind of juxtaposition, I guess, was the filmmaker herself, who was like pretty much the main character of the documentary. Her name was Ashley York. she's a very progressive, feminist, left-leaning, democratic filmmaker from the heart of Appalachian Kentucky, which are very much, in general, a very opposite of that. Not obviously, we saw throughout this film that not everybody there is that, but I did think that was kind of an interesting way to, her still wanting to do a film that helps disprove some of the stereotypes, but also wanting to go do it during a very divisive time in our country's history, which was during the election of Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton, and how much she wanted Clinton to get elected and everyone in her town wanted Trump to get elected. But I think that the political piece of this documentary was what kept it from being much, much better than what it could have been. How do you guys feel about that?
I agree.
Yeah.
It could have done far less political.
Yeah.
We saw enough of that for 4 years, 2016 to 2020. Like I don't want to relive that ever again, because it was terrible.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what made it dated it so much, because here we are, in 2023, not to put a date on this podcast because we want it to live in infamy, but that election is over and done with. Neither one of those is neither one of them are in office anymore or anything, So it's dated itself, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand the desire to touch on that because of its divisiveness in that part of the country, but they spent too much time on it, and I think it pulled me out of it quite a bit. How did you feel about that?
It seemed like they're trying to make it almost like a key point, but not really like a key point.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to mesh it in when they could, but even then I was just kind of just taking me out of it. It was every families, towns, there's going to be some that go one way and there's going to be some that go the other way. It's do you need to show that?
Exactly. And just because the majority were Trump supporters from the town, I don't think that was a shock to anyone, but I also don't think that it was really necessary to go and find the people that weren't. I just felt like it was a somewhat unnecessary thing to spend so much time on, especially if it was just a lot shorter, if that piece was just a snippet to the whole. I liked the idea of disproving stereotypes, but that could have been the documentary in and of itself, in my opinion. But so the filmmaker, she grew up in a part of Kentucky known as Meat House Holler, which I think is a really cool name. I honestly, and when this was without even thinking about you being there, Moonshine, I thought Meat House Holler sounded like a cool wrestling move or something like that.
Yeah, that or even hailing from Meat House Holler sounds pretty good.
Yeah, all the way from Meat House Holler.
Come out with a ham hanging over your back or something. I don't know.
And it's the same one every week, so it starts to stink real bad.
Ham jerky.
Yeah, jerky. Yeah. Let's see, Brice. What else, man? What?
Yeah, man.
Talk. Give us some of the Brice eloquent speech that we've come to know and love.
Oh man, have you?
Yeah.
Back to the whole election thing. Like, she moved out and ended up in L.A., which is quite different than rural Kentucky.
Yeah.
So going back to visit her family, and they all just have very polarizing views at the time. So. But I think they did spend too much time on the election, kind of like I'm doing right now.
Spending too much time in our podcast talking about this, yeah.
But one thing I really appreciated about it is I finally got to find out what happened to the kid from Deliverance.
Yeah.
Turns out he works at Walmart, so that's kind of sad. And he only made $500 on the movie.
Yeah.
But he does have a gold record of 500,000 copies sold.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was an interesting and kind of heartbreaking part of the show when they talked to, what's his name, Billy Redden. Billy Redden, the boy who played the banjo in the duel with Ronnie Cox during the film Deliverance. And since you brought that up, we'll jump to that part. Have you guys seen Deliverance?
Not for a long time.
Yeah. So there's two things people generally remember about the movie Deliverance. One is the dueling banjos, and the other is the rape scene, right? And it was interesting to hear from the people that were in it and around it how like damaging that was to their reputation, because a movie that has been touted as like one of the top 10 American movies of all time that completely destroys the reputation of a culture where now, I mean, I even found myself when I was riding through the hills of West Virginia. I had no cell service, no nothing. And I tipped my bike and I broke one of my shift bars because the roads were kind of cragged up. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, if I can't get this bike up and started, I'm in West Virginia in the hills. Like, I'm in trouble here. That's a fucking stereotype. That's, I wasn't in any danger besides, well, maybe I was, but nothing unlike anywhere else I was going to be. So, that's a powerful thing. The stereotype is a powerful thing. Moonshine.
Yeah.
Anything about the documentary besides the political side of it that you were like, I don't really care for this, or anything that stood out in like a negative way?
That's a good question.
I try to give those from time to time.
Right. I said the political part was that seemed like that would take me out every here and then, but otherwise, everything seemed pretty, like they had like the little parades and they talked to I liked how they talked to the kids about, they're asking the kids, are you hillbillies? Like, yeah, I'm a hillbilly, and then they went back to the politics. It's like, they're like, do you think Trump should win? Do you think Hillary should win? And it's like, well, what is that gonna do?
Yeah, why the fuck do you keep bringing that up?
I was like, he's like he's probably an elementary school student. I'm like, he probably doesn't pay that much attention to it.
Right, yeah, it was the youngest kid in the documentary that they asked that to as well.
That was, like I said, that was probably the thing that just took me out. Like every couple of seconds I'd get pulled into something else and like, boom, that would come up. And it's like, okay, all right, back at this. And,
yep. So they talked about, how did the media representation kind of start? How did the stereotypes start? And they spoke about President Johnson waging the, quote, unconditional war on poverty and showing this part of American culture, specifically white people. And I know they spoke on that a little bit, that, this gave a white face to poverty. The dirty kid on the side of the road, the rundown houses as they were driving past, the broken down vehicles. It starts to become a part of the identity of that people because it's so ingrained, and everyone kind of, jumped on board when they saw the little white kid on the side of the road. Well, they made sure to mention that, there was plenty of black people too in the same region. They just didn't focus on that as much, and that's probably comes back to the inherent racism and things like that.
What about
great.
Yeah, Brice agrees.
It did seem like they could have added more to, like, they had the group of the black people that were saying that, we're hillbillies too, we live in the area, but it's a different distinction. Like, I feel like they probably could have lengthened that with some of the time they put into the politics and stuff like that. Like, I was kind of more curious about what it was like in that scenario. I was like,
they went and talked to the group of, I think they called them Appalachian poets and whatever, which is kind of, we're a talkumentary, so we like to play on words around here, but very, very articulate, very well-spoken, very knowledgeable, very, things that aren't usually synonymous with what someone would stereotype as a hillbilly, and very much not following into that stereotype, which was nice to see. And I would agree that, we could have stood to go to talk to them a little bit more and see a little bit more of their story. We got some of it, they talked to, a gay couple, so Silas House, who ran the radio show, which, by the way, he has a great radio voice, very very low voice, and so anyway, maybe we can get him to do an intro for us someday. But I don't think he's gonna beat that Moonshine intro we had today, though. That might be the.
You gotta give him a shot, though. Let him try.
We'll let him try. But I think something that stood out to me was the fact that prior to this and some of the things that they talked about in regard to the stereotype, I didn't realize, I guess, that the hillbilly stereotype was directed at a region or a cultural center. I thought it was just like, I knew that there wasn't necessarily positive connotations to that stereotype, but I didn't realize, I guess it was just directed towards a region. Did you guys know that? I mean, did you know that was the part of the country that was sort of being stereotyped, or was it? I just thought it was like anyone from anywhere that's, quote unquote redneck or hillbilly, or, that maybe has the stereotypical traits. I mean, was that something
I didn't know that it was region specific, but I mean, like you said, they are everywhere.
Right.
That personification of people, how people are, they're everywhere.
It sounded like, though, in the film, and it sounded like maybe you just disagreed, which is good. It's not directed toward a specific region. It is like a more based on how you look, you dress, you talk, whatever that may be, but it sounded like from the people that were talking, like it was Appalachian, like specific. Do you disagree with that?
I do. I certainly do.
Yeah.
The idea of being a hillbilly, and from what they portray in the movies, just the rural communities that I've been around in my life, there's definitely a hillbilly look, way of speaking, so to say. Mm-hmm. It's definitely profiling in a way.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like the accent was a big part of it, and being from the Midwest as we are, and you get a little bit of you can get a little, some people get a little bit of the draw, but I wonder how much of that's just from TV and whatnot. But I guess for me it was also a little bit shocking to understand that the accent was so important to the stereotype. They talked to when Silas House was on his radio show, and he had two people on who were talking about code switching and having to, draw back their accent, based on who they're talking to, because they don't want to be mistook for being ignorant or being stupid or anything like that, which, or her uncle going into the military. And then when they learned where he was from and heard his accent, and then all of a sudden he didn't get the brotherhood that he longed for in the military, which was sad. Did people really look at accents that deeply? I mean, they must.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah,
I think they do.
It was like Jeff Foxworthy. I mean, this like a comedic stance. He always felt wherever you went, if you had an accent, it deducted IQ points. He goes, because nobody wants to have your doctor walk in the room and be like, all right, now what we're going to do is, cut the top of your head open, root around in there with a stick and see if we can't find that dang burn clot. Like, are you going to trust this guy to work on you? Even if he went to school to be a doctor and has all these degrees, it's like.
Right. Yeah. And that's all just conditioning, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing stupid about a person just because they talk that way, but you're right. I mean, just saying that, like that's conditioning that we've been brought up with for our entire lives. When if somebody talks like that, they might not portray the same amount of, or they might not possess the same amount of intelligence, which is obviously something that we as a culture should probably work on. But I will say, and I know that like James, for example, he's talked to me before about, like where he grew up in what he would refer to lovingly as the hood, and the way he would talk to all of his friends might be a little bit differently than the way he would go talk at like a job interview. That's the same kind of idea. You're not necessarily talking the same way that you would talk to your group of friends. And in some ways I get that, but it's sad that you would have to change something so trivial about yourself to be taken seriously, in my opinion. Anyone got anything else that's standing out here? I feel like I'm coming to the bottom of my barrel here with my standout moments.
I didn't see a lot of alcohol consumption in this show, which
yeah,
I mean, for a show about hillbillies,
yeah,
I expected a little more of that, especially being from Kentucky. That area is right for moonshine.
Right.
That's
the
that's
literal
the
moonshine. Yeah,
the moonshine capital of the world is over in that area. So
right next to the Bourbon Empire.
Right next to the Bourbon Empire.
Yeah. What are you drinking there, Moonshine?
I'm actually drinking blackberry brandy.
Okay, that's right on brand, right?
That's more my Czech roots always kind of go to. So.
Yeah, nice. I mean, do you guys agree that that definitely wasn't portrayed very heavily in this documentary? Does that play a part in that culture? Is that something that was left out, maybe intentionally?
Well, maybe either that or we're just conditioned to think that way,
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Well, because didn't they have like a lot of moonshine runners like back during Prohibition and stuff like that? Weren't?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not super.
I don't know if Copperhead Road runs through Appalachia, but
I don't know. Good Lord.
It's also, I thought it was interesting when they kind of went towards, like they did go towards the Buck Wild show and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a show that completely just escaped my mind. Like I watched it and I enjoyed it when it was on, but I forgot it even existed because I forgot about the whole accident with Shane Gandy, I think his name was. Yeah.
They mentioned another show too. What was it?
I seen they had some Duck Dynasty clips in there too.
Yeah,
Stuff
Duck
like
Dynasty. But I feel like maybe I was just thinking of Deliverance and all that. So we talked about the political side of things. I did think it was kind of funny when her granny said, shame on you for voting for Hillary. I must not have burped you right when you were a baby. That was pretty funny. And then after the election, Silas House saying, I love Appalachia, but I don't feel like it loves me. That was kind of heartbreaking. I didn't look up, anyone look up any of these characters at all afterwards? Or
No,
me neither.
I did not.
So something that was brought up in the documentary that I personally have never seen. Have you guys seen hillbilly culture being adopted as like a hipster trend or theme? Is that anything that you guys have experienced? Because they talked about it and I was
Kid
like,
Rock.
what? Where the fuck is this?
Yeah. Kid Rock, maybe.
Kid Rock.
But
I've seen, I don't know if you can adopt a hairstyle into being like a whole
The mullet.
trend. I said there's mullets kind of having a resurgence right
Yeah,
now.
it
I've
is.
noticed.
Oh, man.
It is.
And I was
yeah.
like, there's kids in schools
Gross.
like mullets left and right.
It's gross.
Like,
yeah.
if it's coming back, it's coming back. You
Yeah, I
can't
guess.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they talked about redneck chic and like they showed Usher come out on like one of the talk shows with the a coonskin cap or whatever, and maybe that just escaped my purview because I couldn't give a shit about it, But I thought it was interesting. People throwing redneck parties and all that, and I'm not being from that region. I don't know that I can, but I guess I don't see it as as. I'm probably going to get hate mail for this, but I don't know that I see it as, the cultural appropriation in the same way that, maybe the Native American culture or the, or the Black culture or, if you're having an Indian party and everyone's in, headdresses and things like that, I could see that being problematic. Maybe it's just because it isn't a race, as opposed to, but what are you guys' thoughts? Do you have issues with that? If you walk in and someone's throwing a redneck party, are you like, that's kind of fucked up?
5 years ago, I'd have joined them.
Right. Depends how good the party is.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, interesting party because they were sitting around saying, "Oh, white trash is the new hipster." Like,
never heard that.
I haven't seen that played out.
Right.
So I think they were just wrong on that, or it's so hip that I just don't know about
Maybe
it.
it hasn't got to us yet. It always gets to Nebraska late.
Big
so.
chance that that's on the way.
Yeah. Oh, good. I can't wait. Yeah.
But
go ahead.
A lot of like the guy with the coonskin hat and stuff like that. Like, was that just like a one and done? Just like,
right.
I was like, it's not like a part of him now. Like, I don't think I see him go out with it any more than just the one appearance. So
yeah, agreed. And I guess though, when I think about it, with the resurgence of the mullet, and everyone wearing like the pit viper sunglasses, I guess I can kind of see it maybe spiking up a little bit. That sort of NASCAR crowd, that sort of thing. But I don't know. Anything else? Any other standout moments? Brice, Moonshine, Matt, anything that stood out that you guys want to talk about?
I think one of the lines from the movie, they were talking about the coal mines or the coal industry, and it's like they were talking about being looked down on.
Yeah.
And yet, what was it? 3/4 of New York is powered by West Virginia coal.
Right.
Like,
yeah, and that's something that I didn't get into that maybe we should talk briefly on. The fact that there was so much exploitation from big companies to this region that the people there, it was very similar. There was a lot of shades of our episode for 13th, where how they sort of exploited black people into continuing to use them as slaves because they called them criminals, for false charges. Well, it was the same kind of thing. Like, we don't really want to give you any credit for the coal that's on your land. We don't really want to give you any ownership of the coal that's on your land. We don't want to give you any of the kickbacks from that, but we do want you to work in the mines. So what we're going to do is portray you as a bunch of deplorable Neanderthals up here and keep it as far and essentially, for lack of a better term, rape the land that you're on, because they talked about flooding that happened because of that. They talked about the boulder that came off from the guy illegally cutting through the hills with a bulldozer and killing the little kid, which was super sad. That's a pretty sad tale. Yeah. And, then being told that even though you're kind of being targeted in a lot of political campaigns as the salt of the earth, blue collar, working class Americans, but then when those things happen that were caused by the companies that are lobbying the politicians and all that, and now you're not coming in and sending any aid in any kind of timely manner, I mean, that should show us a lot of things about the way our government works, and they mentioned it in the documentary, if we clearly aren't paying their paychecks, so they're not going to spend as much time and money on us, which was sad.
And then the statistic that they had probably the highest opioid overdose.
Yeah.
Rate. I guess
remind me what that was about. I didn't take note on that.
Well, that was just in like the same line, that region has the most opioid overdose fatalities or something.
Yeah, and they mention that along with a different statistic. Like, it doesn't matter.
It was in there.
It was in there. It was somewhere in there. So how did we feel after the credits rolled in this one? Brice, let's start with you since you're so eager to talk to me today.
Absolutely.
How'd you feel after watching credits roll and Brice goes to sleep?
Well, I just kind of had the feeling like, yep, that's over. That was
Jesus.
That was pretty good, but I was also kind of bored with it by the end.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Sorry. That's
Don't apologize to me. I didn't make it. I just made you watch it.
I just apology to everyone.
Should apologize to him for making him watch it.
Nah, I'll never apologize for that.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Matt, how about you, sir? How'd you feel?
I mean, overall, it was a good documentary. Too much political stuff.
Yeah.
I could have done without that. I could have learned more about the hillbilly culture than I needed to spend time with my brain power on soaking it in with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
How about you, Moonshine?
I feel like near the end, I was getting ready for it to end. Like these guys are saying, like it was kind of dragging on a little bit, but for the most part, like they were saying, like I kind of like how they were trying to put a good spin on Hillbilly. You know, they said like all around the world there are Appalachians. They said whether you see them or you don't, there are belts of people that are, so we might not talk right and stuff like that. And I was really looking for that, like hillbillies are just like everybody else. Sure, there might be some bad ones, but I'm sure there's some good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to that point, you're absolutely right. When, it's important, I think, if you're going to make a documentary like that, it's important to make a focus of that. And I think it was, and that was what they did well, was to say, it's not all just a bunch of inbred idiots.
It's not Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like a
exactly.
horror movie with hillbillies running around.
Because how many media representations of the hillbilly persona or the kind of redneck persona is that the all around, to use a wrestling term, babyface? Can you think of one? I mean, I think Lil Abner was supposed to be one, but I know that was a pretty rough representation of,
Dolly Parton.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
they did go there. That was a pretty cool clip.
Yeah, that's all you need, but that's also all we got.
Yeah, true. For me, like I said, this did open my eyes a little bit. I truthfully, I don't think hillbilly culture and that was really much on my radar at all throughout my life, and it doesn't really play a huge part in my life, so I don't know that it'll stay in the forefront of my brain just because I'm not from that part of the country or anything. But I was shocked by how much people identified as Appalachian. So that I was a little shocked after that. I didn't hate this documentary, but I didn't love it. I think that's this one falls right in the middle for me. However, what I will say is I loved the music in this documentary. I just love that kind of country, southern Gothic style. There was a musician that they interviewed. Her name was Amethyst Kia. She was just killing. She was playing guitar on stage, and then she talked to them a little bit about liking the Appalachian term as opposed to hillbilly. I think she was the one who kind of said that sort of turning into a slur type of term. I knew her voice sounded familiar. I looked her up, and there's a playlist on Spotify called Southern Gothic that I listen to all the time, and she's on there like 3 times. I'm like, yes, that's fucking awesome. So good. I love that shit. Was there a message here in this documentary? Moonshine, what do you think, man? Was there what were they trying to tell us?
I think they were just trying. To me, it seemed like I said, like they were trying to get over, like hillbilly. Well, hopefully doesn't turn into a slur, but it can be used as a word of just a type of person, that, they don't have to be bad or cousin lovers or anything of that nature, anything derogative or bad. But I like seeing people just being held up, like, this is what they are, this is where they're from, this is where it originated, and kind of just hoping that it doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think that this was a objective or a biased documentary?
I think ultimately it was a biased documentary.
Agreed.
It was pretty clear where they were leaning in what direction.
The political stuff, man. I mean, that really fucking ruined this documentary in a lot of ways. Not
even just the political stuff. I mean, one can preach for censorship in the person making the film, because they didn't want to talk about hillbillies and the way they were personified, and they didn't want to have that stigma And I guess that's what they were trying to do, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was pretty biased. Now, what I enjoyed was that so like you said, it's pretty clear which way the filmmakers were leaning. The people that they really focused on were the non-traditional Appalachian, leaning people, whether that's the young and queer, the black, the
liberals.
Yeah, liberals. I mean, essentially, which is great. All that's a representation that you wouldn't necessarily see, and I do think it was an interesting choice to go and look at those cultures in there. But it's not surprising to me that that there's a subculture. And I mean, you literally go to any small town and you're going to have your little subcultures and in there. But the only people that she talked to really that were, I guess, for lack of a better term, your more traditional Appalachian leaning people was her family. And it would have been nice to maybe get a little bit more of a smattering of the difference of opinions. Maybe she only felt safe going and talking to, and by safe, I just mean the conflict. I don't necessarily mean like physically safe, but to talk to her family because they knew they were still going to love her and all that regardless of, but,
so yeah, I think her main goal was to show the incredible divide that's been present in our country. You go from Kentucky as a local and sort of being a liberal, and then you move to a liberal state, which is very, very, very liberal, California.
Right. Yeah.
And then you come back to make a documentary during an election, one of the most divided elections in our lifetimes.
Right.
As far as I can tell, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think media has a large role to play in that, but
yeah.
I think her goal was to show the how divided everybody is and show that ultimately we have the same goal. We just go about it differently.
Yep. Yeah. Brice, agree with that? Disagree with that? You want to just fucking leave or what?
Better agree with that.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Do you think there was any questions that we didn't get answered throughout this? Were you like, wait, what the fuck happened to that thing or what? Or did you think it probably over explain things?
I think we got a good roundabout amount of knowledge on what being a hillbilly is about and the people who take that on as their identity.
Yeah.
And I think that was, kind of the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. This was a weird one for me.
I'm going to play host for one question real quick.
Do it. Yeah.
So do you guys think they portrayed hillbillies the way you grew up thinking they were?
No.
Not really. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Me either. I didn't. That's not what I was expecting.
And when you say that, do you think it's because that your expectation of a hillbilly was not correct, or do you think that they portrayed hillbillies incorrectly? When you asked that, what was your?
Well, I wanted to compare what the documentary said and based on our opinions on what we thought of it, because I don't think that they portrayed the way we us Midwesterners see what isn't a hillbilly. Yeah, but they live that culture and we don't. So what we know is much different than what they do.
Well, most of it was because that was the media representations of what it was. All right, so let's talk about our ratings for the show. Every episode we take some time to talk about what we want to give as an official documentary rating for this. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being as as offensive as voting for Hillary Clinton is to Ashley York's family, and 10 being as good as a freshly distilled batch of moonshine. The item that we use for scoring changes each week based on the content of the documentary. And this week, we chose Meat House Haulers. Can you give me a Meat House Holler there, Moonshine?
Give me a Meat House Holler.
Thank you. Yes. Sounds so much better there. All right. Moonshine, let's, in your best Moonshine, Russell, tell me why. Give me a Meat House Holler, what you rate it, and why.
Oh, let's see here. I said I think I've floated about a 5. Like I said, there was a lot in it that I liked. A lot in it that kind of just took me out of it. Didn't really feel connected at points. Like I was like kind of waiting for it to end. Like I said at one point, but like I liked the message that it was trying to get out. But I just feel like it kind of got stagnant in between those points. Kind of just drawed it out. So
yep, fair enough. So 5 Meat House Hollers. Bruce.
Yo. I really liked a lot of the camera work that they did.
Yeah.
And I like how they spliced in a lot of like pop culture movies and everything, and trying to fit that all together with this story about her family and kind of the difference between California and where she grew up.
Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Good old Kentucky.
So Meat House Hollers, hit me with it.
Ooh, it's 5 solid Meat House Hollers.
Okay. 5 Meat House Hollers. Matt, talk to me, friend.
Yes. So the videography was my favorite part of it, and the music.
Music was fucking sweet.
I fucking love hillbilly culture music.
Yeah,
like
same.
like it's beautiful, and it's fun.
Would you do me a kindness, Brice?
Yes.
Just give me a good old strum there, sir.
Yes.
All right, Matt.
Yes.
Matt, how many meat houses?
I give it a very, 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 very generous 6. And
6.
I say generous.
6 Meat House Hollers from Mr. Matt. I give it a 4. Similar to you guys, I was ready for this one to be done when it started getting to the end. I liked a lot about it. I liked the fact that it challenged me to kind of reevaluate some of the ways I think. In a lot of ways, that's what I look for in a documentary. But I just felt like it got ruined by bringing so much of the election into that. So to me, that kind of pulled me out of it. So 4. After averaging all of our Meat House Hollers, the official documentary rating for Hillbilly is 5 Meat House Hollers. So, Moonshine, thanks for joining us, friend. Thanks, champ.
You. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
Good. I hope you did, man. Maybe do you have is there wrestling documentaries out there? There's a ton of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite one?
Oh, like right now, I think, is it A&W? I think they're doing like just a whole bunch of them. Like they're doing seasons.
Oh,
and they've done some like on Mick Foley, on Hogan, on Hart, sometimes feuds between the guys. It's hard to just pick one because, I've always have favorites and whatnot and lean one way. But
what wrestling programs are you watching right now?
I watch everything. I got to stay on top of the business. I watch a little
WWE,
AEW, ROH, Impact, whatever I can get my hands on.
Impact still as hard to watch as it was for...
Sometimes yes.
Okay.
Sometimes no.
All right.
It's got its moments.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So again, thanks for being here, man.
No problem.
I want to wish everybody who's listening. I think this comes out a couple days after our nation's Independence Day. So hope you went out, had fun. Hope you have all your fingers and toes. Unless you didn't want them anymore, then hopefully they went in a blaze of glory. You got plans for the 4th of July? It's fucking April right now.
Probably gonna blow a firework or 2, drink a drink or 3. My dad's birthday is the day after 4th of July, so we usually hit 4th of July pretty hard. So the 5th is kind of a dud for him.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about next week's episode. Next week, we're going to be taking a look into a very moving, very powerful, and courageous documentary called Gleason. Gleason, this doc follows a former NFL player as he and his family struggle with his decline into the disease ALS. And he begins to make video diaries to give to his unborn son. So grab your tissues for that one, Moonshine, if you're going to join us. I don't get too drunk and start blubbering because I think it's a sad one. Have any of you seen Gleason?
Nope.
Yep.
Brice, this was actually your dealer on this one, so I could tell this is going to be a tearjerker for me.
Yeah.
Any predictions, guys? Anything you want to say before we get into that one?
I cried the first time I saw it. I'll cry every time I see it.
Yep.
Just play a banjo while you watch it, and you'll never cry.
That might bring them out even more.
You know, a banjo does set the mood a little different.
So, everyone go out, check out the documentary Gleason before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Amazon Prime Video and I think on a couple other things, but that was the one I'm going to watch it on. We're going to grab our tissues and attempt to bring a little bit of light into a dark, dark world, one documentary at a time. Go out and rate and review our podcast on your favorite podcast streaming service. Let us know what you think of our show. You can connect with us at Talkumentary Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or you can email us info.talkumentary@gmail.com. Moonshine, I hope you're not in a terrible mood after all this, man.
I'm floating pretty medium. Pretty medium.
It's a good night yet.
Yeah, there's still time.
Time for a bad mood. I got a folding table over there right
Matt,
now.
you want to go through it?
Yes. I wish I could watch you put one of these two through that. So, on behalf of Moonshine Russell, give me something.
The Bohemian Dream, baby. I'll tell you what. Come meet me in the ring. Try to take my title, and I'll put you down.
Yeah, very good, very good. You got any? So let's see. This comes out in July, beginning of July. Anything planned that far in advance?
I have no idea.
No idea. All right.
Hopefully, I'm every champion you can find.
Yeah, you're gonna be Mooney at least 3 belts, right?
Right. Mooney 2 belts to 3 belts. If I get 5, I may just retire at that point. I don't think it's gonna get any better.
Do it.
That's a lot of belts.
Retire.
One for each pair of my pants.
Where can they find you if they want to check any of your wrestling promotions or anything like that?
Here. Facebook, I got a fan page, Moonshine Russell. Pretty easy to find. Just type that in there. A couple of the companies I work for, PWP Live, you can find them on Facebook. Next Level Wrestling, NLW. They all got link trees. They'll take you to their Twitter, to their Instagram, to their TikToks, anything that's popular, I guess. Otherwise, I think my Twitter handle is The Bohemian Dream. That's DA, Bohemian Dream. Otherwise,
I'll put all that stuff on. Send me that stuff. I'll put it in our show notes for this, and that'll make it easy on everybody.
Right. And there's a lot of words and letters in there.
I know. It's surprising coming from. No, I'm kidding. Let's not go there. All right. On behalf of Moonshine Russell, thank you again, sir. Brice, Matt, DJ, the whole damn documentary crew. I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski. Thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open. Be kind to each other and
be a good human.
Be a good human. That's Matt's. What's your tagline? Give me something, Brice. Make it up right now.
Come and take it.
I like it.
Moonshine,
putting it on a shirt.
Send them off with something good.
God damn, boy. We'll catch y'all down the road.
Thanks, man.